In yet another nomination, which is both predictably self-serving and ultimately disastrous for the future of this country, Donald Trump has just announced that he will appoint Kari Lake, yes, that Kari Lake, the disgraced MAGA Republican political candidate, conspiracy theorist, election denier, pathological liar Kari Lake, the position of Director of Voice of America, which is supposed to be a nonpartisan state-funded international broadcaster. That's right, this nonpartisan state-funded news agency will be led by Kari Lake. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans and conservatives, they assure us that they are a beacon of free speech and lack of censorship. They don't want some sort of right-wing echo chamber. They just want things to be fair. They want the facts. They don't want fake news. And yet, one of the leading purveyors of fake news, Kari Lake, has just been appointed to a key position over news by another purveyor of fake news, Donald Trump. This is what he says. I am pleased to announce that Kari Lake will serve as our next director of the Voice of America. She will be appointed by and work closely with our next head of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, who I will announce soon, to ensure that the American values of freedom and liberty are broadcast around the world fairly and accurately, unlike the lies spread by the fake news media. Kari was a beloved news anchor in Arizona, which supported me by record margins for over 20 years. Congratulations, Kari. Now, it is true that Kari Lake is a veteran news personality before she went off the deep end and became a MAGA Republican who failed to run for, or she did run, but she had a failed campaign for gubernatorial race of Arizona and then to replace Kyrsten Sinema in the United States Senate. So now she's going back to her roots, and she will now be a key propagandist for state-run media in the United States, which is supposed to be nonpartisan. In the history of this, I mean, some of this stuff I'd forgotten about. This is truly stunning. So CNN's talking about this. Trump's Kari Lake pick sparks fears at Voice for America, or of America. Presidents don't ordinarily pick the director of Voice of America, an international news broadcaster funded by the U.S. government. But Trump says he wants his ally Kari Lake to take over VOA. Trump's Wednesday night social media post, in which he said, some journalists at VOA are highly concerned about the idea that Lake, a longtime local TV anchor turned media basher and election denier, could take over the outlet. And I should say that it says Trump's late night social media post presages many future fights over VOA, which has become an ideological battleground during Trump's first term in office. That's the part. The problem with Trump, and I've said this before, there are many problems. One of the biggest ones is he's done so many unhinged, dishonest, unethical, corrupt things that it overwhelms you. Like reading about this and like diving back into it, I had forgotten so much of the unhinged stuff that he did with the VOA in his previous administration. And just relitigating this, it will shock you if you care about nonpartisan journalism. Again, we'll talk about that. We're hoping the guardrails will hold, a VOA employee told CNN on condition of anonymity. At issue, what should VOA be and who should it serve? Voice of America is part of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, which also runs networks like Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and Middle East Broadcasting Networks. VOA produces award-winning journalism and in so doing, promotes democratic values around the world. The U.S. government has historically portrayed VOA as a counterweight to foreign propaganda and a model for free, fair, truth-telling news coverage. Partly for that reason, VOA says it has a, quote, firewall in place that, quote, prohibits interference by any U.S. government official in the objective, independent reporting of news. Installing a new director of the news operation is a lot more complicated than a Truth Social post. So for now, Trump's announcement is more of a suggestion, albeit a highly influential one. Trump's statement said Lake will be appointed by and work closely with our next head of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, who I will announce soon. That position is Senate confirmed. The head of U.S. Global Media, U.S. Agency for Global Media. That position is nominated by the president, but Senate confirmed, and then that person appoints the director of VOA. And that's the thing. Can Trump, by procedure, simply snap his fingers and make this happen? No, but can he effectively do so, given his cultish grip over the GOP? Yes. And this is where it gets really stunning. Again, stuff I'd forgotten about, and I imagine many of you did as well. During Trump's first term in office, it took 2 years for his pick to run the agency. Michael Pack, to get confirmed by the Senate. Once Pack arrived, chaos ensued inside VOA and other parts of the agency. Pack dismissed the heads of multiple networks, stacked their boards with Trump loyalists, reportedly tried to meddle in news coverage, and brought in political appointees who investigated a VOA White House reporter for alleged anti-Trump bias. Some conservatives cheered his efforts, but a federal investigation later followed up on whistleblower complaints and found a long list of abuses. The Trump-era purge efforts led Congress to institute reforms. A bipartisan group called the International Broadcasting Advisory Board now works with the CEO of the U.S. Agency of Global Media. By law, the head of the VOA can only be appointed or removed by a majority vote for the board. If it sounds like a lot of bureaucracy, it is, but it's intended to provide some measure of independence to the broadcasters. That's why by announcing Lake, Trump is putting the cart before the horse, a veteran of the agency told CNN. So getting some more information, this is from the New York Times. In 2020, Trump appointed Michael Pack, an ally of his former aide Stephen Bannon. So think about this. Michael Pack, the guy that Trump appointed in term 1, was a Steve Bannon stooge. Steve Bannon. Yes, that's Steve Bannon. To run the U.S. Agency for Global Media. Pack was accused of trying to turn VOA into a mouthpiece for the Trump administration, and a federal judge ruled that Pack had violated the First Amendment rights of the outlet's journalists. A federal investigation later found that Pack had grossly mismanaged the U.S. Agency for Global Media, repeatedly abusing his power by sidelining executives he felt did not sufficiently support Donald Trump. He also rescinded a provision that prohibited the U.S. government officials from meddling in the editorial decisions of Voice for America. So think about this. The party of free speech, led by the free speech champion himself, Donald Trump, appointed a person deliberately to spread propaganda for the Trump administration, and that guy, on behalf of Trump, rescinded a provision which prevented U.S. officials from meddling in editorial decisions. He removed the firewall. He wanted to make it easier for U.S. government officials under the Trump administration to make editorial decisions for a nonpartisan state-run media. What the hell? And now to go on, and this guy isn't even Kari Lake. I imagine Kari Lake is going to be much crazier, given her public-facing statement. Folks, this is stunning. It's just absolutely staggering. And this is going to get a fraction of the attention it deserves. It's going to get a fraction of the attention because the problem with Trump is he does so many things, it overwhelms people. We've got Ash Patel as FBI director. We're going to do a video about that because there was some big news at the FBI. Pete Hegseth as defense secretary. You've got Steve Bannon as the Deputy Chief of Staff of Policy. Stephen Miller. It's just overwhelming. Elon Musk as the de facto shadow prime minister. Guy who is, involved in phone calls with world leaders, foreign leaders. He's he's part. The MAGA movement complains about unelected bureaucrats. Who the hell elected Elon Musk? This is where we are. I mean, any one of these, if the name was different or if the political party was different, this would be a global scandal. This would be New York Times front page worthy shit. But because it's Trump and he overwhelms people, and he's quite frankly graded on a curve by most of the media, including CNN, including the New York Times, there's going to be a fraction of the coverage this deserves. Trump's authoritarian impulses are on full display. Kari Lake is a conspiracy theorist. Kari Lake is an election denier. She denied the outcome of the election she lost against Katie Hobbs, who became governor of Arizona. She didn't just deny the 2020 election with respect to Donald Trump. She denied the 2022 gubernatorial race in Arizona. Republicans simply can't lose elections fairly, according to Kari Lake. The only way Republicans or Trump, because they're so perfect and flawless, the only way they can ever lose for any reason is if Democrats cheat. Heads I win, tails you lose. This is an attitude we have never seen in the Democratic Party. Never. But that's their operating premise. We are perfect and flawless, and the only way you can beat us is if you cheat. How unhinged and unrealistic is that? And that's the entire animating principle of Kari Lake. And she's going to be running state-run media, state-funded media that already has a checkered past because of Trump. This is where we are. Folks, we need to care about this stuff. He hasn't even been inaugurated yet. But Kari Lake being appointed to a position over media, certainly state-run media, should be a national scandal and a total indictment of the claims the bullshit claims, the dishonest claims of MAGA Republicans to care about free speech. They don't care about free speech. They just want speech that favors Donald Trump. That's it. The metric by which we evaluate whether or not free speech is free is whether or not it favors Trump. If you say something that is good for Trump, that's free speech. That should be protected. If you criticize Trump in any way or say anything that doesn't explicitly favor Trump, that is not free speech, and that's fake news. That's the paradigm. Hasn't even been inaugurated yet, and so much of this we forgot. The whole Michael Pack thing from 2020, I mean, obviously we had a global pandemic, but it's stunning. It's stunning. Trump's authoritarian impulses on full display here, and the only question is whether or not people will draw attention to it and give it the scrutiny and pushback and backlash it deserves. I'm trying. How about you? In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.